comments, so she'll be here to help us answer anything, and then afterwards do our, do the board training. I know you guys all have copies. Do you have any questions or discussions before we open it up to anyone from the community?
Any questions? Nope. All right.
I will tell everybody she's got a little bit of a cold, so,
Thank you for trudging through.
we appreciate her. It's a long drive.
Let her give an
Please bear
overview.
with me, I've got strep throat, ear infection.
Oh, goodness.
Some of what I'm getting ready to tell you guys, we'll discuss as well in our board training. But I wanted the community to have a little bit of background. In the late 1990s, there was a lawsuit between Lakeview School District.
Excuse me, is your microphone good now, because I can't hear you at all? Thank you.
In the late 1990s, there was a lawsuit between Lakeview School District and the state of Arkansas, Governor Mike. The premise of the lawsuit was the inadequacy of educational funding and facilities around the state. That was pretty much a given, still is to a big degree today. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of Lakeview School District, and they set 8 mandates in place that had to be addressed immediately and ongoing. One of those mandates was that school districts present every year a 6-year academic facility master plan. Within the plan are 15 components that deal with demographics, enrollment, condition assessment, maintenance, custodial, prevention, as well as short, long-term projects. This is a living document. It is done every year. The year that coincides with a partnership application, which is our even year submission, is when we have a community meeting and a school board resolution. The odd year is when simple updates are done. There's no application for funding. These simple updates are making sure that the buildings have the same usage as what they did before, that we have the right principals, and if any projects have been completed in the 12-month span. Again, this is every year that we do this, and we've done this since 2005. This year, going into our master plan, it is an even year. We are applying for 2 partnership projects. We are applying to replace the roof at Guy Berry, and we are applying to replace the roof over the vocational building on the high school campus. These projects will be reviewed during the 24 year. We will know the fall of 24 if they are approved. We will not know if they are funded until May 1st of 25. So that gives you just a little bit of a background, and of course we'll go into a lot more in our training. Up on the screens is actually what I work on. This is the master planning tool. This is linked to the state. And as you can see, there are also applications, there are also instructions that are available. The first thing we look at is the general information, which is tab 1. And this looks at every building in the district, academic as well as non-academic. We identify to make sure that we have the proper contact information. We do a condition assessment at the site level and also at the building level. We make sure that we add buildings if there are new buildings. Good way to start is Nelson Wilkes. Nelson Wilkes has one primary building that was built in 1960. And then there were additions that were added on to that building. One of the things that was brought up in one of the comments was the warm, safe, and dry list that's put out by the state. Warm, safe, and dry list is not only components of a building, such as your roof, your electric, your plumbing, your heating and cooling. It is also a building replacement. And that is based off of 2 factors: the age of the building and the condition assessment of the building. So I know that it was mentioned in the comments that Guy Berry has a lower or higher score than the high school. Guy Berry was also constructed in 1938, so that is the heavily weighted score that puts that into a warm, safe, and dry. The age of a building does not determine the replacement of a building. Fort Smith has one built in 1902 that they still use today. It's in great shape. But what that does tell us as a planning tool is if there are things that begin to fail in that building, we know ahead of time. There's something called an FCI, which is a Facility Condition Index, and that is based off of a condition assessment. And the FCI is 65%. That's the threshold the state looks at for warm, safe, and dry building replacement. They say if it's 65% or more to renovate a building as it would be to build new, then you should go build new. Does that make sense? Okay. So I just wanted to clear up with that warm, safe, and dry ones. When you look at Nelson Wilkes, like I said, it was built in 1960. You have the original structure. One of the things that I do at each district is I work with the maintenance department, Chris, and we do a condition assessment. Now, the original condition assessment was done in 2002 and 3. At that time, we did 80 million square feet in 80 days with 45 teams of engineers and architects. We did a snapshot in time. I need whiskey.
I'll be right back.
We did a snapshot in time of the buildings, looking at code compliance, at fire marshal compliance, building code, and also the new standards. At that time, there was $2.9 billion in need statewide. About 5 years ago, some legislators, with the brilliancy, said we need to continue this, so we're going to ask districts to do a self-assessment. This is the self-assessment. It's very simple. Is it good? Is it fair? Is it poor? Is it replaced? Now, you can see that there's an estimated life of years. A foundation building has around 100 years of life on it. If it's in good shape, then that estimated replacement year is 21, 24. Once we put this in, then in the background, it generates a dollar amount. And it tells us that over the next 20 plus years, you could, in theory, spend this amount of money, okay, $20 million. Now, what this is strictly a planning tool. It allows us to look and say, hey, we've got a 1960 building. That roof has not been replaced since it was put on. We're going to begin having imminent failure. We're going to have system failures. So it allows for us to prepare and plan. Just like we've been watching the Guy Berry and the VOAG building, we knew that it was time for it to be replaced. So that's why we're doing the applications. So again, this is a self-assessment based off of the original assessment. So we took that baseline and we just follow it through and we update it every year. So as Chris and his teams make improvements, replacement of HVAC, though I go in and change that from fair to good, and then that recalculates that number. Any questions on the basic demographic general information tab? The next notification is insurance. At one point in time, districts were allowed to have 90% building replacement coverage. They now must have 100% building replacement coverage. These numbers, which is law and ordinance, property and transit, money and securities, those are provided to me directly from your insurance carrier. The other thing that we have to show then is we actually have to load up a copy of the district's statement of values. Where is it? It's in here. So this is a statement of values provided by the Arkansas Insurance Department. Even though the state has access to these, they want us to do our due diligence, and we upload this to the master plan every year. This also enables me to cross-check any square footages to make sure that there are no discrepancies in the square footage. And also if there have been major changes in the usage of a building, then I can contact Wiley and go, hey, you know, you've got this listed as a junior high school, it's now used for storage. So it allows us to have that communication between the Arkansas Insurance to make sure that everything is squared. Custodial maintenance is tabs 9, 10, and 11. There is a statement of assurance that indicates that the state is participating and utilizing the computerized maintenance program. That was one of the 8 mandates put forth by the Supreme Court. Every work order must be input into the school's computerized maintenance system. Now, funding for system replacements is directly tied to that. So if we want to replace a roof, I have to go back and pull 5 years of work orders. If I have no work orders, they're probably going to deny that project, even though it may be leaking like a sieve. There's no evidential proof that there are problems with it. So I can't impress enough upon districts, principals, teachers to use the computerized maintenance system. I skipped tab 2. Tab 2 is the resolution that you guys will sign. Tab 3 is the community documentation that I will upload. Tab 4, it says not required, it's optional. This is the district enrollment projections. Tab 5 is demographics of the community. I actually include those demographics in tab 6, which is the state narrative. So we can look at the narrative now. The first thing I do like to pull out is the demographic information. Looking not only at our school, but also our community and our area. One thing to note, since last year, the median income has dropped. The poverty level has gone up for the Mountain Home area. In your document, I'm not sure, but the enrollment from each campus is in either red or green. Green if it's increased, red if there has been an decrease. We also look at just talk about the things that have been done at the campuses, with the buildings for each one. Buildings in the district that are with a 0 or less building value. And again, these are based off of the age of the building only, not the condition. So we have a few of those. Guyberry, the ALE building built in 1938. What they want to know for us is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to maintain it? Are you going to do renovations? Things like that. Now, here this is interesting. Okay. So, The Mountain Home School District, since I started working, when I started working for the division in 2005 till today, I have seen the wealth index, which is how much money does the state give you for facilities, not your funding wealth index. It's a little different. I've seen Mountain Homes go from getting 5% share up to now they get 44% share. So how that translates is the district was getting 5 cents on the dollar, now they're getting 44 cents on the dollar. So it's gotten better for us over time. The wealth index for a district is based off median income and your assessed tax base. Here it is. I did mention earlier that we are looking to apply for partnership for the replacement of the Guy Berry and the VOAG building roof. We did get partnership money to replace the roof over the junior high school. I think at that time it was like 15%, Chris. So we got 15 cents on the dollar at that time. But prior to my actually coming and working for the district, they didn't even try to apply. Now, I mean, 15 cents on the dollar may not seem like much, but it'll cover your architectural fees, it'll cover your engineering fees. And as you can see, it's progressing. So when I came to work for the district, we started applying for projects. And the one most recently that we got approved and funded was the replacement of the roof at the junior high school. I'm gonna skip that for now. Through CARES Act funding, we've replaced HVAC around. We also have to identify tracts of land that are undeveloped. These also have to be listed on what I call the web tool, where all the buildings are listed. And they are listed as unutilized land. And regardless of if we got our eye on it for future development, it is currently unused, and it goes on the underutilized, unused list. Okay, and that list was created because of the charter schools. So they have first right of refusal for any property or building that is on the underutilized, unused list. Any questions so far? Somebody has some.
Give you a break.
I don't want to go too, I'm going to come back to this, I don't want anybody back here to think I'm not. All right, so tab 7, I mentioned about the insurance. This was something new. Tab 8 has always been the Americans with Disabilities Act. And there has always been a blanket statement that districts were able to use that said our buildings were compliant according to the age and date in which they were built. If a problem arises, that problem will be addressed. In 2021, Representative Mallory passed Act 987. Act 987 required that every district in the state of Arkansas do a full assessment of their buildings, regardless of the age, and that we create a transition plan for areas that need to be made ADA compliant. So, and that was for any building built before 2004. So we've done that, and we will begin working on creating a transition plan. Now, basically what she's saying is, in that act, is that no building is grandfathered in. But what we have to look at are not so much the ADA compliance of the building, but of the program areas. Okay, so if you have a 2-story building and you have art on the 2nd floor and you have no elevator, then you have to figure out how to either put an elevator in or you move art downstairs. So you have to make sure that the program areas are ADA compliant. You have to make sure that you have at least a male and female restroom and a family restroom that is ADA compliant. not every entry into a building has to be ADA compliant, but you must have egress. So that's usually 2 points, one in, one out. So it's not saying that, and there's gonna be some buildings that, there's a lot of things that may not meet ADA compliance, like door entries, especially on old buildings. You're not gonna be able to go in and start changing those, because you're gonna be cutting into some load-bearing walls, they're brick walls. So there are things that you look at programmatically. How can I make the changes in the program areas to make sure that I am compliant, that all students and staff have access to everything? So that was a huge undertaking. Tab 9, again, it's that statement of assurance that we're using the computerized maintenance program. We also have to put in custodial schedule samples that we use. These can be very fluid, but these are some things that we've worked out over the years that are part of the district's maintenance and custodial plan. Tab 10 is the maintenance, renovation, and repair schedules. On the computerized maintenance program, there are probably over 500 already scheduled, what they call PM schedules, which are preventative maintenance reports that come out every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 months, every 6 months, and every year. One maintenance person can be busy all year long doing nothing but PM schedules. Tab 12, it's simply a sign-off that we have gone through. We have updated our condition reports. Tab 13 is where we do our planned projects. Tab 14 is our committed projects. Tab 15 is the financials. This is taken straight from the annual statistic report that is put out every February, so the most recent one that's available is from February of '23. What we look at here is how much academic square footage do you have, how much non-academic. You take these particular figures from these particular lines, and it's just a calculation. What the state kind of looks at is to make sure that the percentages aren't higher on the non-academic versus the academic, but I don't have any districts that happens to. I have some districts that run real close, but not a lot. All right, so this is our district projects. These are planned projects. Your planned projects for your master plan, they're a want and a wish list and a needs list. Again, because this master plan has to be done every year, things change. So what we may have a year for 25, 26, we say we gotta do it now, we can't wait, so we can move it. Or things for 24, 25, well, we can't get to it now, we need to move it out a couple of years. It's constantly changing. And it changes according also to leadership. What one superintendent's vision may be for the district may be different for the next incoming superintendent or for the board. So this is not anything set in stone. Just because it's in the master plan doesn't mean your hands are bound to do it, okay? But it has to be in the master plan if you want to do it. That makes sense? Excuse me just a minute. There was a comment, one of the comments about tennis courts. That have never been addressed and will not be addressed, such as tennis courts. Well, that might happen. And we may come back next year and say, we didn't do it, we're probably not gonna do it, let's take it out. Okay. But for right now, it was asked to be put in, so that's what I did. We have the 2 projects that are listed here. If you'll see on this, it's got this little thingy. this indicates that it is a partnership project. And I'll show you what that looks like. The first thing we do is I have to indicate, if I say that it is not a partnership project for this cycle, okay, if I change that to a no, I close it. Now, everything's changed, right? I don't have the justification. I don't have all the documents. If I go back, Lord, I hope I didn't lose anything. And I say it is. Now we've got the partnership funding, we've got the additional information, we've got the submission. We have to upload the documents. So everything changes, not only on the scope, but you also have to have the justification. You have to have a copy of the resolution. You have to have a copy of the work orders. You have to decide what the funding is going to be. I did lose a lot of it. Shouldn't have done that. But that's okay. So that's what happens when it's a partnership project. Is there's a lot more detail that goes into it than just a regular project. We have at one point we had and these are deleted projects. Let me just show you the deleted. Deleted projects may not mean that we didn't do them. It may be that they got merged into another. For example, we had a new track, but what we actually have decided to do is the Bomber Stadium renovations, we're gonna resurface our track, right? So I got rid of that other one, and I added resurfacing track to the Bomber Stadium renovations. So just because a project gets deleted, it's still in the system. I can pull it back at any time, but sometimes it's just a merging factor, or we reshape the project. So last year in 22, we applied for the high school. Okay. I've deleted that project. Okay, it's still there, but I've deleted it. Whatever we do with the high school going forward, I've created here a new project, so it doesn't have partnership. It's got it labeled here, but as you see, there's not all those other tabs. We're not applying in this biennium for it. So there's not gonna be a millage, okay? Not this coming year. Once we decide what we wanna do or what we have to do, then the next funding opportunity would be in 26. At that time, I would change this to partnership, and it would say 27, 28 funding on it. So these are placeholders. They are projects that we want to do. They're projects that we would like to do, but they're not anything that we are bound to do. Any questions about the planned projects? Committed projects, they're a little different. They're things that the district has said, we're doing them. We're moving funds into them, we're doing them. One of the comments said that district should address the fire marshal recommendations in the master plan immediately. Well, they already were the day that I got the recommendations. They were put into the master plan and they're listed under the committed projects. And it's basically almost verbatim what the local fire marshal recommended. So those are there. So those are your committed projects. Those are things that we're saying we are doing. Completed projects are just that. They're things that have been completed since 2011 in the district, either locally funded or with state funding. And that's kind of that, the master plan.
That started in 2011.
The master plan began in 2005.
That's why Heckler's up there.
The first project that we show is completed here is 0708.
That's Heckler.
Ms. Jones, you said, what was the percentage on the partnership funding? You said for the high school was 15 cents on the dollar, 15%. Is it now 44? Is that what I understood? And is 44 44% on what dollar? What dollar amount do they look at?
That's the reason they use what they call the wealth index, is to make
Right.
sure that a dollar here is a dollar in Springdale, is a dollar in Camden.
Okay.
And so when you look at, there's a little caveat. So the state has a cap, a construction cap of $289 a square foot for new construction. But construction cost are anywhere from $320 to $400 a square foot. So if we were gonna build a new elementary school and it was 100,000 square feet, the state's gonna say, okay, that's $28.9 million, I think.
Okay.
That's what they qualified at based off of the 289. But we know it's gonna be closer to 32, 34 million. There is a cap, but there has to be a cap, because the legislative body only gives 70 million a year. And when you get some districts that get 15 million immediately out of that share, well, now that list has come down. The legislators this past session, the division director and assistant director and the financial director, all made it very clear to the legislative body that we had to have an increase in that square foot per funding cost. Our largest surplus we've ever had, and they said no. It was $270. So the division on their own upped it to 289. But when they did that, that meant 18 districts out of 120 applications, 18 projects got money. That was all. So on that, $289 a square foot, they're gonna pay 44 cents on the dollar of what is qualified and what is approved. And we will get into our board training, how they determine how much square footage is approved versus how much you want. Does that
Yes, ma'am.
make a little
Yes,
bit of
ma'am. It
sense?
does.
And, let me see if I can put it up here. So, what does this top column say? So this tells you the household median income, the relative median income. So if we go down and look at Mountain Home, household income is $43,799. So this is your state share right here.
Gotcha. So it's perfectly clear, that is not 44% of the project cost, because there's been some confusion there. That's on their
44% of the
289
approved-
per square foot, so 289 per square, of their
Right, of the
approved
approved square
spaces,
footage.
et cetera. Right, so, gotcha. Thank you.
And when they fund the lesser of two things, the qualified cost or the contract cost. Because sometimes it's real wonky. The warm, safe, and dry crawl cost, like a roof or HVAC, seem to be high on their end. Well, when we put it out for bid, it comes in lower. So they look at what is the lesser of the two, what they said it was qualified at, or what the bid was. And they use RS means construction cost. Let me show you that. So it's not like they just pull a number out of their hat or anything. Okay, so. Alright, so this was updated 5/11/23, so this shows you. Again, these are RS means construction cost, basing on like your grade configuration, your enrollment, and your regional cost center. So obviously, our regional cost center is gonna be Harrison. So if you build a new 912, it'd be $289.
the next section on the board training, we're gonna talk about how, which projects get funded, advice which ones don't, or is that something maybe we can explain here?
Well, they use a ranking system, and so like warm, safe, and dry looks at the condition index, it looks at the health index. Space projects are based off of enrollment and what your enrollment growth is, and so there is, it's a weird, it's almost, trust me, I don't really quite understand how they do it, and I worked for them. But they've changed the ranking system, but they do look at the contributing factors of what your enrollment is, what's your wealth index. And the wealth index is a big one because the poorer districts, they want to move up, right? They don't want the wealthy districts getting the money. So if you've got a low, then they're going to move you up, and then they're going to look at, okay, are you in a declining enrollment, or are you in a growth? And then, like our roof project, if there was no supporting documentation for it, it's done. It's out of the water, right? So that's how it is. Now, again, there's that line, but a good example, Highland. Two failed villages had to turn back $6.5 million. So that money goes back into the pot. They go down the line, and then the districts that are at that line, now they go up. So they keep trying to rotate and move up districts. If there's failed villages, or if the cost comes in just too high, they can't do it, which we've seen a lot of right now, because now there's the added component that you have to have a safe room, right? So some districts are like, well, crap, I was gonna be able to do an elementary, but now I can't, because I've gotta spend $600 for a square foot for a safe room. So we're saying, so anytime money is turned back, whether it's rescinded or pulled back, then they go down that line to the people who didn't get, who do not get funded, they'll move them up. Questions from?
A couple previous screens where you had all the cities listed, Mountain Home had 690, is that 690 million? What is that column?
Appraised value. Assessment value.
So that's,
So the first one,
total valuations of the buildings,
no,
Assessment
this
value.
is
Assessment.
Assessment.
Schools.
assessment.
And
And
then
ours is
Community.
The value of a meal, so
690 for Mountain Home.
Mhm.
699 million. So a
Almost
meal,
a billion.
a meal generates $699,000 a meal. I think it was, what was it? I had somebody ask me, well, I think it was the previous superintendent, why did Cotter get more money? Again, here, 1 mil generates 699,000. Cotter, 1 mil generates 64,000.
Yeah.
So that's why Cotter gets more state share. Again, they try to level it out so that that the shares are somewhat equal. And there are some districts in the state that get less than 5%.
Does the state look at the wealth of the county, meaning bank deposits or whatever, anything like that,
They look at the median income.
the median income?
Yeah, they look at the median income. So our median income is 43,799. They get this information straight from the US Census.
Ms. Jones, Ms. Jones, and you talked about the master plan's a living document. You know, if we say, hey, we don't want to do something in it, it can be changed, et cetera. So I understand that. And I think that's, you know, a lot of people need to understand that as well, too. The question I have here is, you know, from the the letter we got from Division, right? You know, it talks about at the end, the district fails to complete the transitional facility plan as submitted, the division shall make the recommendation. So does that change anything by them saying, hey, you have to submit this master plan by February 1st? And then if you fail to follow up on what you submitted on February 1st, then we're gonna make this recommendation. So does that change the fact that the facility master plan, if we say, we wanna do this instead of this, I mean.
Well, the first thing that we're doing is part of Marshall Sean Lofton's recommendations of putting in.
Yes, ma'am. Addressing our safety
Protections.
concerns. Yes, ma'am.
That was the first indicator, and that was kind of an immediate thing. That is in there, so that's in the master plan. The fact that we have in there a project to address the high school, and I have changed the language of that project scope, as you saw, so that it doesn't say we're doing this, this, and this. It says we're doing this based on some final recommendations. So, we might as well just talk about the elephant in the room. The state did not come in and say the high school had to come down. The district went to the state and said, we want to take the high school down. Okay. When you put in a partnership project for the demolition of a building, the state comes up with their team and they do an FCI condition of that building. And they will either agree or not agree with it on removing of the building. If they agree with it, it moves forward. As part of the 22 application, they did the FCI of everything under the structure, the cafeteria, the fine arts, and the library. And then they said, cafeteria is okay. Fine arts and library are okay. Once they realized that that PMB structure could not be taken down without damaging that cafeteria, even though it was a 1996 build, they said, you're right, we're gonna give you that additional square footage. Fine arts and library, we're not gonna approve that, okay? We had a code analysis done of the building according to the current code, not only a fire code, but also ADA code. We had a structural engineer come up and assess the PMB structure. We had our local fire marshal, and we had a state fire marshal. There's a couple of things that have not been clear on some of the publication. One of the comments listed here current Big Top presents no safety hazards to students or faculty. Okay, that was Mr. Hudson's comment. On July 19th, local fire marshal stated, the Big Top is a firefighter's nightmare. The issues need to be addressed as soon as possible to reduce the likelihood of a catastrophic event and a major loss to the community. On August 23rd, the state fire marshal, the addition of the Big Top does provide an added hazard for firefighters. The structural report engineer states the structure cannot withstand additional weight of sprinkler. How can a catastrophic event and major loss to the community and a firefighter's nightmare not allude to some safety concerns of the students and staff? If the fire marshal doesn't want to send his guys in. Okay. So just saying that there is no present danger is not fully accurate. And I've called the fire marshal out on it. Okay. But the state did not generate the ball rolling on replacing the building. The school district did. The board approved the resolution, and we went through the steps to get the approval to demo done. As with every district that I tell, when you tell the state you want to tear a building down, you are gonna pull off every Band-Aid, and you are going to expose yourself, okay? And that's what we did. They'll help you, but, now, they don't have the full authority to come in and say, we're putting a lock on the building. They can make the recommendation to the Commission of Public School and Academic Facilities that is headed by 3 chairs. The person who can put a lock on the door is the state fire marshal. I wrote to the state fire marshal Monday, and I've copied our local fire marshal on it. And I've said, and I'm sure I'll be asked for this, so that's fine. Will the recommendations of the local fire marshal make the building structure safe and compliant? Number 2, how are the hazards to firefighters and likelihood of a catastrophic event not relevant to student and staff safety? Number 3, what would the district need to do in order to maintain the high school and the PMB cap over if they chose not to demo and replace? Number 4, does the structural report give evidence through the building PMB will not allow for additional support of a fire sprinkler suppression system? They have not written that to me. If they come back and they say that what Marshall Lofton recommended makes the building safe, you're good to go. The state's happy. Nothing else has to be done. But they have to present it to us in writing. They have to give that. Because I know you don't, and I know the community does not want to turn their head to any safety issues with kids. Because what the state saw was those 2 things I pointed out: catastrophic event, major loss to community, firefighters hazard. That's what the state saw, and that's their impetus. But now if they come back and they say that those things that Sean Lofton suggested will make it safe, then we're done. We have corrected the problem, and the building is now safe. And our transition period is over, and no further action will be taken. So, regardless of whatever angst community members have against the district, against me, against the state, the bottom line is the kids. That's the bottom line. And I want the state fire marshal and I want our local fire marshal to put in writing that those recommendations will make the building safe and compliant and will not lead to a catastrophic event and community loss. If they do that, then it's all over. We move on to the next project. If they don't, that's when we have to come back and go, okay, now what do we have to do? Can't sprinkle it. The building won't hold the load, the gravity load. Okay. Can you remove the PMB without damaging the structures underneath? I don't know. You can't renovate. You renovate a building by 10%, the entire building has to be brought up to code. Guess what? That means a sprinkler system. You can't sprinkle. Now we're back on that again. Okay. So there are things, but if they say you're good, we're good. We don't have to go any further. If they say no, that's when we have to decide to go deeper. And by going deeper, then we sit down and we go, what do we have to have? Not what do we want? Not a big Christmas list of 130,000 square feet, big robotics auditorium. What do we have to rebuild and replace those structures underneath? Questions?
Yes. I had a question. I seen it in the paper, our local, not in the paper, news agency made a statement to the fact that the department, or Arkansas Department of Education was requiring the Mountain Home School District that they had until 2030 to remove the PMB, pre-engineered building, the big top and the buildings underneath it. And when I saw that, I wrote a letter on October 4th to Director Kane, I think it was, yeah. And I asked in there, I says that I would like all the documents supporting the fact that why they are justifying demolishing those buildings, why you're telling the school district to have to demolish it. The legal counsel for Department of Education for the state, sent me the letters and all the documents obtained with that. And then with Dennis Free, as you know, is the acting state fire marshal.
He is the fire marshal now.
Oh, you got the top, great. And within that, with the documents that I see, I wanted a copy of the letter that they stated that they sent to the Mountain Home School District stating to them that they had to 2030 to demolish the big top building and the buildings within it. They never did send that document. And upon phone conversations is with them, they never would send it openly, verbally, make a statement to that factor that, oh, we're.
So what the state has said is you have to 2030 to correct the safety issues. And they gave the same things. It's either sprinkle it, which you can't, remove the PMB structure, address the safety concerns, or demolish and replace. So it's, again, I go back, it's not the state. The district is the one who said they wanted to do that. Now,
Okay.
Dennis Free has not issued a formal letter,
Right,
but the local fire marshal did issue a formal letter.
okay. The building, the big top building, and the buildings underneath the building, when they were built in accordance to the governing regulations at the time the buildings were constructed, just as the other buildings were. And if they were in violation of the Fire Prevention Code, the 2021 edition, or any, and through the years, the state fire marshal, the local fire marshal, or the Department of Education would have been writing up all these violations throughout the years, identifying these hazards. And that hasn't happened, and based off of the engineering documents that I have that the legal counsel provided from their agency that we work for, is everyone said the building is safe to be occupied. Everyone could say, and I come from a fire protection background, we're fire marshal nuclear power plant, I understand the codes and stuff like that, but presently, the pre-engineered building, the big top, and the buildings underneath it would be considered an existing building, where the 2021 Fire Prevention Code for the state of Arkansas would consider that to be existing. If you upgraded and changed it, as you stated, it would have to comply to the new regulations, where you would have to go ahead and sprinkler the building, put a fully fire detection alarm system within the building. The thing is, as it stands right now, it is in compliance with the law. I can say, yes, it would be great to sprinkler the building, put a fully alarm detection system in there, and many other things. But those are recommendations, but legally, we're in compliance. Anybody can make those recommendations. And
I don't think that very many people, and this is just kind of not honesty, knew what was up there.
here's the
Because
thing.
where you go to get to it,
Yeah.
you go up behind the gym, up the stairs, through a crawl. So I don't think that a lot of people realize what was up there. And just because it was, and the thing is according even to the structural engineer, there's no plans to be found on this building,
Yep.
right? So we don't know, because even the structural engineer says that there is differing in the pylons
Oh, yeah, I
up there.
have this
So,
document.
and it being built in the 80s, there was no division, there was no regulating body.
But you could make the statement on any building, it's always gonna be.
Okay,
And then you
I
have
agree with that.
The void, here's the thing, that building, the big top and the buildings beneath it, basically, they're no different than any other one of the school district buildings here, just like this building. You got the clock walk there, there's a open void area from the ceiling roof.
Have you been up there?
I've seen the pictures, I have.
Have you been up there?
No, would you
You,
take me?
you should go up there. You
Okay,
should go up there.
I would like to do that.
All right, so
But
here's,
I understand what you're saying, man, you have ordinary combustibles. If there's hazards up there, why hasn't the state, the fire marshal wrote up those hazards, and why not run them? If it's about asbestos.
I'm going to say that probably they never have gone up there.
But I've seen the thing, I know what it's an open, big, open void area, just like at your house, it's an open attic area. And how many school districts have you seen where they sprinklered up inside the attic area? If they have a wet sprinkler system, they're gonna freeze. So you would go with a dry system, but how often have you ever seen it? It's down into the areas that are
It
occupied.
goes to the same thing as with the ADA compliance, okay? The buildings were constructed in accordance to the ADA code in which they were built. The new law says it doesn't matter.
They have to
Oh,
be-
on specific things, yeah.
So-
Great.
Can I ask you,
Yes.
why are you so against it?
Against what?
If the structure has to come down, why are you so against it for safety and security of the students and staff?
Well, I would say, I'm all for the safety and security of the students, enforcement of the state fire prevention code, I'm all for that. But I would say the same thing applies to the rest of the schools around here, is the Guy Berry School sprinkler? Or how about the kindergarten school where the
There's a
children are?
difference when you go up there and you look, okay, there can be a fire started up in that area.
Up in the void area,
Yeah.
correct,
There can be a fire started in that area
just like
that
that.
is not detected in time to evacuate the building, and the building does not have proper egress, okay? So there is a difference than in just saying, we've got a fire here.
Why haven't those conditions been notated as far as a violation of the code?
Ask your local fire marshal that.
Well, that's a good question.
Ask your local
And the
fire
state fire
marshal.
marshal's office. I
State
have-
fire marshal does not do annual inspections of the district, that is left up to the local.
Okay, and they took it upon themselves to comply to the state's 2021 fire prevention code, which I have the ordinance and stuff that they adopted, and they are enforcing the code upon the school district. And the thing is, I'm all for the safety, because I know what they're for. But the point for anybody can come in and recommend to do something, just like places of assembly
The
here in
state
town.
says the district has 6 years to address the safety concerns.
What are those? Is this what the
I
fire
just-
marshal put?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
you're gonna kill kids and stuff.
So, and they said that you have these options, and they said as well, if the state fire marshal says in writing that the recommendations of the local fire marshal make the building safe and secure, then it's a done deal. If they don't, then we have to find out what the next steps are at.
Did we answer the question? Because, 15 minutes right there. What was your question?
My
Ex-
question has. to do
Wait,
with
Mary,
envir-
just a minute.
Okay.
What's
Robert?
your question?
Yes, I don't know what we just did for 15 minutes.
He thinks it's in-
Well, Mary, would you like to explain just what you explained to me, so that she would understand?
Well,
I mean, the same documents you requested are the same ones that Ms. Klingle requested, that everybody's requested. It's the same documents everybody's got. You've got the fire marshal's letter, you've got the Sean Lofton's letter. And I go back to, the state did not say in their letter, you have to take down the building. They said you have 6 years to address the concerns. These are the concerns. You, district, figure out how to fix it. If you can't fix it with fire code upgrades, then you have to decide what are the next steps then.
Mr. Weedling, I'd like to know, what is your suggestion? What do you think we should do? You've got a background in
I
it.
think you need to comply to the state of Arkansas.
We
Fire
have.
Prevention Board.
We've been inspected. We've got all the documents that you've asked for. So what, can I have your suggestion?
Comply to the state of Arkansas Fire Prevention Code and the Code of Federal
Okay.
Regulations. Which, right now, the school district is in violation of
By-
the code and the Code of Federal Regulations. I sent you guys many certified
Oh, I know,
letters.
I know. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Ms. Klinger had a question behind you.
You read a few sentences from the state fire marshal's email. Would you read that entire email?
Be happy to. This is not an official report or a letter from the state fire marshal's office. We were only on site to assist the Mount Holm Fire Marshal with code question and advisement. Spoke with Tim Kane a few days ago and informed him from information on the dates of when the big top was installed over the existing buildings and the buildings connected. The square footage of the structures may have increased over 15,000 square feet, which at that time were required to have sprinklers installed. As for the building being unsafe for students and staff, we did not notice any concerns. The addition of the big top does provide an added hazard for firefighters. The structural report from the engineer states that the structure cannot withstand any additional weight such as sprinkler system. I wrote back, do you have any recommendations with which the district should do? From a fire marshal's and a firefighter safety standpoint, the structure needs to be removed and replaced, but this will be a discussion of the local school district.
So there was a line in that first email from him where he says, as for the building being unsafe for students and staff, we did not notice any concerns.
Right.
So I just want to make sure that that entire email from the state fire marshal is read.
Right, and that's the reason in my email to him on Monday, I added that and I said, how can you equate those issues with, and not have them relevant to staff and student safety? That was the exact things that I sent to him.
Any other comments or questions? Mary?
You're talking about fire safety and security. What about environmental and health in regards to mold, mildew, lead paint, all those things? Do they exist in our high school?
I don't think there's been any indication.
Has anybody checked?
I don't, there was a code of compliance done, and I don't think there was any environmental check done.
Have we ever had anybody come forward to the board of it, the school board in regards to lung issues or anything, air quality, anything like that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not to the board.
Not to the
But
board.
how, because I was wondering about the age of parts of this building, if in fact, do we know what's in those walls?
Most of them are blocked, so there's not gonna be much in there. Usually when buildings begin having sanitary sewer and plumbing issues, then that does tend to trigger a district to replace the building, because now they're gonna be busting out concrete and things like that.
Have there ever been
I don't
any
believe that there's
leakage?
ever been an environmental study done, but, you know, indoor air quality testing
Yeah,
is pretty easy. Is there any asbestos reports on that building?
As opposed to,
So those go through a 3-year, they go through an annual inspection, then a 3-year evaluation.
because you have sheetrock inside the building.
And there is asbestos in there,
Okay, there is.
but as long as it is contained and not friable, it doesn't present a health hazard.
Has the roof ever leaked?
There is indications of the pre-engineered metal building leaking.
And it could have gone into walls with,
More than likely, it just went into the void space and down onto those ceilings. It would have had to have been like a god flood for
Not
it to
into
go that
sheetrock
far
or
down
anything
on
like
into
that,
the,
or-
yeah.
okay, all right.
Does the board have any questions or concerns or comments?
I just have one comment. Over in the gym area, they've got a part that's caution, don't go in this room. What is that exactly?
Oh, the locker rooms?
oh, down below?
Yes.
So, I guess we call that the old gym. When there was a giant water issue, I don't know how long ago, before me, a pipe burst underneath what we call the new gym, I know it's still old. And there's a tunnel there that was dug from underneath there that goes through, so that they could replace that. And then, also with the plumbing issues that are in that building, because that's the low point, anytime we have, you know, some sort of water leak that's under the concrete, it all comes out there. So if you go down there, it's a bunch of, it looks like a construction zone.
Right, I noticed it like a week ago for the first time and was curious, wanted to ask some questions about it.
Would you recommend an environmental assessment?
I've recommended a lot of them the past year because of the ESSER funds. If you wanted to do a roof replacement, you had to do an indoor air quality.
Yeah, 'cause
Indoor air quality tests are not, they're not hard. It takes about a day. Naples Engineering, Naples Environmental has one company that can come up in a day and perform one.
and any areas that have ever gotten wet, I think should be looked at too.
Yeah, they can do that.
So, Ms. Jones, just for tonight in master planning, there's obviously a piece of information missing, which is, hey, are they gonna say, the way we've mitigated the safety concerns outlined, that's good or not, et cetera. So if we go forward, and put this master plan where we talk about, hey, we can mitigate it, or a new facility, et cetera, and they come back and say, yep, hey, you're good, or hey, there's these other safety concerns and we can mitigate those, we're not locking ourselves into a path of this has to be done by 6 years.
So this has to be submitted
so.
by February 1st?
Yes, ma'am.
I better by God have a reply from the fire marshal before then.
Well, yes, ma'am, I understand. So there's just that big piece of information that,
Yes.
I mean, that we don't know, the community doesn't know yet, et cetera,
Yes.
so.
So once we get the information from the state fire marshal, that will help us in either the path is over,
Sure.
or which way do we need to go now?
Sure. And to be clear, I think many people that I've talked, we understand that that facility's a problem and there needs to be a solution for it. It's in my opinion, it'd be much better to move forward with that solution on our timeline other than you must do it and you must do it here, which constrains us a little bit. So that piece of information is going to be key when we get that back on what needs to be addressed and are there ways to mitigate that.
And if, you know, if, again, if we decide that we want to, or we have to replace the structure in the buildings, you know, we can reapply in 26 for money available in 27, and that still gets us within that time frame.
Okay.
It's just a matter of revisiting the project and figuring out what we need versus what we want
Sure.
to change the scope of the project. But you're right, until we get that definitive letter that says yay or nay, we're kind of in a limbo right now. If I were to submit the master plan tomorrow, we are compliant at this point by showing that we're doing these recommendations and that we have a project in there to address it. And again, we update this every year, so it will change every year.
Okay, any further, rest in peace if you can get it out now, because we're going to break and then we are having a training session with Miss Eliza.
So the training session will be for the board. That will just be you all. I mean, everyone's invited to stay, but community, that's not back and forth.
Okay.
Will the meeting be adjourned after?
Yes,
any
sir.
other School district be conducted after the training session?
School business? No, sir. This is the agenda.
Okay.
Last chance. Okay, we're going to break and then we will start again.